Revealing the enemy of progress. We're on day two, and yesterday was really finding different words and looking deep into the systems. So, with the enemy of progress, what it's doing is it's allowing you, really the intention behind it is to go back into wholeness. So you don't believe what I'm telling you or anyone, but you check it in your own system. You check everything in your own system and have the ability to check in your system and also read systems and know how systems are created, know how systems are operated, and know how to address the system. So it's giving space and a more creative way at looking at yourself, looking at the world, looking at what topics are in us, and giving that space to us. So for me, it's this intention of going back into wholeness. With that intention in this webinar, it's going to open up and confront different parts of us which were programmed. It's like conspiracy theories. So often that word has been thrown around, and as soon as it's used in some groups, people shut down and are afraid to speak, afraid to express, afraid of free speech. So, how many programs are in our system or our ancestral line where we're afraid to confront the doctor, we're afraid to ask questions, we're afraid to ask the priest, we're afraid to ask ourselves, we're afraid to ask a friend in case we're embarrassed. We're afraid. I work with many children now, and they're afraid to be blocked on Instagram or all the social media. So the conditioning, what conditioning is in our system, and what programs are in our system, and then how are we controlled? Are we controlled by fear? Are we controlled by guilt? Are we controlled by anxieties? Are we controlled by greed, by money? Are we bought with a wage pack because this is my job? So I will do something toxic for the environment because that's my job and it's not my responsibility. It's the boss's fault. So what is in our systems and what is blocking us from our destiny level and what is on the soul level. So, what part in our system are we splitting from our creator part? And that part could come up in a relationship with ourselves, with a partner. It could come up in friendships. It could come up in our work. It can come up in our creativity. So, this webinar is really about addressing what you don't want to address, confronting maybe what you don't want to confront, confronting whatever maybe conditionings in the system. And as you can see in the world, and I'm sure you're noticing it yourself, as you're seeing something reveal the truth about somebody or an organization or the medical system or the food system, as we're discovering how polluted and how poisoned it is. And then even to accept that somebody would consciously put poison in baby food is a very hard reality and hard fact to face and to accept without dissociating, because I could not believe that somebody would poison a child. And that in itself is something where we're going to dissociate from, because the majority of us would never poison a child and wouldn't even go there. So, how can I go there and accept that someone else would poison a child? So, these are the different patterns which I want to address in this webinar series, and that you can really go back to the soul of yourself, your essence, your truth, to live from the destiny level and become whole. Because if these dissociations or patterns cannot be accepted that are in the system and society, because it's within us first, we're creating the whole thing, then we will, and it could be in a microscopic field, could be from 10 generations back. So if we don't address these fields, then and simply give space for the system to reveal what's in the system, and we say, no, 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 I don't want to look at it, then we're going to recreate the whole system again. So for me, it's simply accepting whatever shadow, whatever manipulation, whatever darkness is in my system, and to confront it and to accept it, and then to go in compassionately to resolve it and go back into wholeness. And from that point, I will be able to gauge what is in my system, and then I'll have a better reading of also what other systems may be hooking into my subconscious fields, which is taking me off in the wrong direction or in a path which is not my destiny level. So, what is in the way of me progressing in life and in the way of me growing and asking questions and having free speech and afraid of free speech. So, what part of me is embarrassed to speak out? What part to speak my truth? What part of me is pretending to be smaller than I am? What part of me is escaping, hiding, invisible? What part of me is overinflated? So, just looking at all these parts and addressing them will support you to drop deeper into your destiny level. So, this webinar is really going to confront different topics that's in your system and also maybe that you're tapping into around you. And it helps you to be free and to connect to creation and have fun with it. And what I find from working with different people and leaders, because this is about you being your own leader and your own authority and your own responsibility for all you're creating and saying and speaking, and acting and not acting on. It's to accept all those parts of our system and then to create something beautiful. And my experience is when you really allow yourself to be free, you feel exciting, creative, and you get a lot of energy back. Um, that is what my observation is, even though it may be difficult, and you may need to commit more and show up more, it's actually fun and it's joyful and you feel passionate and your fire comes back in your system, your life force. So yeah, thank you for being part of the webinar. It's really beautiful to connect with you all. And it's beautiful for you to hear all your questions and your sharings and your keys of your sharing. It's about you expressing yourself and asking questions and not believing anything I'm saying, but really questioning yourself and find your own truth. We're all individuals here with our own patterns, our own ancestral patterns, our own goggles, our own voice, limits on our voice, caps on our channels. So we're all finding ourselves and giving each other space without pointing the finger and really giving space to be an individual and also to unite on unity level of consciousness where we're all supporting each other to develop and to grow and holding space of compassion. And we don't know what's the other person's been through. We are not in their shoes. We never have been. So before we point the finger, first looking inside our own systems, addressing what's in our own systems, and you will find that your frequency will change and maybe you don't resonate with certain situations, certain organizations, certain people, even, or you don't need this experience in your life anymore. So it's going to work through multiple layers and it's working through the whole system as we are an entire ecosystem in ourselves. And it's going to help you to become more whole. And that is what this webinar is about. So you can find yourself and live your life as a creator, as an artist, living freely and expressing who you are and questioning everything and working through the fields yourself. Thank you for being part of the webinar. And anyone who wasn't there last night, the recording from last night's out and you can drop in later live if you want and or watch it later in the week. But it's really about an empowerment. I feel it's really, this webinar is exactly what's happening in the field at the moment, that there's huge unveilings of truth, of misuse of power, misuse of finances, misuse of people. And there's some heavy topics now as well, which it's about confronting. But when you face the heaviness, the darkness, it brings you so much light and it makes everything much more spacious and light inside when you realize and accept really what's happening in the system rather than dissociating and using your battery up, your energy up from dissociating that I don't want to see that, I don't want to feel that, I don't want to know about it. And then there's a part where I'm part of it, so I have my responsibility in that. And that is something we can't deny, that if we're part of a system. It's interesting with the chemtrails I hear at the moment. I heard a recording of pilots who are spraying every day and they know they're spraying aluminium and different things over people's homes and onto the land. And their answer was, well, talk to the boss, you know. So it's not about talking to the boss. If I'm the pilot spraying, I have a responsibility in the system. So if I'm part of a system which I consciously know is not creation, I am the one who must face that. And I am responsible in the system. And I can change the system. I can change the system. So if all the pilots don't spray, press the button for spraying, the system stops. So we can all stop and stop engaging in these systems, whatever they are, in whatever frequency, in whatever part of our life we find them. So it's a beautiful time to be here. It's a time for massive shift in the system, massive revealings, massive growth, and an opportunity for wholeness, and also an opportunity to close off from systems which I don't need to engage with anymore because I know that it isn't for me. So I look forward to seeing you later if you'd like to be part of this webinar. And thank you for all the support over the years. And thank you for your questions and feedbacks. And yeah, I'll see you later this evening. Thank you.